Hi everybody and welcome to the latest edition of the BSIA podcast, The Voice. I'm in the studio today with Alan Stenson, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Neutral Carbon Zone. And also joining me today, partner in crime, is our Financial Director, Dean Griffin from the BSIA. So welcome, Alan, to the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us a bit about yourself and a bit about NCZ.
Well, so NCZ started originally back in 2006, actually, in terms of a sustainability consultancy, so helping businesses to really understand their footprint and understand where it's coming from, what they can do about it. And as you can probably imagine, back then, that was a very different environment to the one it is now, so it was a bit of a tough sell. And fortunately, things have really changed over the last sort of 4 or 5 years. It's massively increased in terms of priority levels, businesses being asked questions that they were never being asked before. So it's turned into a hygiene aspect. You know, it's gone from a nice to have to something that you absolutely need to have. And thankfully, you know, because we've been in the industry for such a long time, that we've been really able to create solutions that work for businesses rather than just give them a report to say we've got a report. It's a process and it's something that can add value and really cement that relationship they have with their clients, so that they're genuinely adding value through the steps that they're taking, rather than just trying to tick a box and do something that they think that they need to, and then that's where it ends. So for us, it's all about building those relationships and helping people to transition from essentially wherever they are now to net zero and everything that entails. So it's a whirlwind of a ride at the moment, and thankfully it's crazy busy, but for all the right reasons. So I'm definitely not complaining.
That's brilliant. BSIA, this is where I'm going to hand over to you, Dean. BSIA have just got our gold certification, which is fantastic. You guys, tell us about how the application process. Obviously, Dean, you dealt with it for the BSIA. How it works, you know, how from an end user point of view, from us going through that journey. Talk us through it.
So we got in touch with one of your representatives with Pip. She spent a bit of time with myself and one of my colleagues, Lynn, who's in our finance team. She went through all the steps, went through how to work through the system, what was expected from us for each of them to make sure that we were hitting the right metrics, and what sort of information you guys are looking for to put it into your system to do the calculations. And then across, I think we were given about 12 weeks or so to go through the whole process. But myself and Lynn, when we went through it, it was a case of, I think it took us about 3 weeks in total across the whole thing, but condensed down, it's probably about 3 or 4 days. Really simple process to use. The system itself is really intuitive. There's lots of information in there that helps to guide you, but then if you are ever stuck or anything like that, we were able to just give Pip an email, give her a call, anything like that, and she just helped us, guiding us through it that little bit more. So it's a really, really simple system to use, a lot of support along the way, and completely different to what we've looked at other times when we've looked at these things in the past.
That's great to hear. I mean, that the whole idea of providing someone with access to a platform and then just leaving them to it didn't ever sit right with us, and I think, you know, there's that's only going to work for us, you know, a small number of people. And I think if you give people a login and say, right, all the best and let us know when you're finished, they feel left on their own, and there's always going to be questions. You know, one thing I've learned over 20 years of doing this is the data collection side of things does worry people, you know, and sometimes it can be complex. So it's about how do we do that in a way that is achievable. And I think you need that balance of technology to make it accessible and the tools and the support, but you also need someone to hold your hand through that process when you go, well, I don't have this bit of information. How do I stay compliant, or what do I do? You know, I've got this bit of information. Which category does it go in? Because people don't necessarily have all the answers themselves, so they do need that support. So that's always been really important for us. But yeah, good to hear how your experience has been, and yeah, I mean, did you have many sessions with Pip or the team?
We just went through it once as a collective with me and Lynn on a video call with Pip. We went through it. It was probably about an hour long. So it wasn't too long a tutorial sort of thing to go through each of the steps. It was relatively short space of time that we had to go through for it, and then because the system was so easy to use and a lot of information there, it wasn't too bad a thing to go through.
Yeah, brilliant.
Some of the things that we've looked at in the past, we've had, because we have looked at going down this route before, it's just been like you get a form online, you just fill out a few little boxes, and it doesn't really give you an awful lot back. It just says you're at this point or something, but it doesn't really give you any more information behind it. So you just pretty much are so what do we do now sort of thing. But with you guys, like, we had a follow-up call after speaking to Pip, and you've gone through the report with us, you've told us where we're at, and then you've already told us that there's going to be some next steps to get back in touch with Pip, and then she'll guide us through the process a little bit further to see what we can do going forward to help improve that.
Because that's important as well, isn't it? I mean, a report is one thing, but what does it mean, and
Absolutely.
where does it help you go? You need that relevance to know, well, okay, I know what the number is, but what makes up the number? And then if I do focus on an aspect of that, what difference can I make if I focus in that area, rather than saying we're going to try and be greener? It's the specifics behind it. If you're looking at influencing your staff commuting, for instance, that's something that you don't control, but you might be able to influence that. And if you did, how much of a carbon reduction would you be able to achieve if you reduce that travel by 10%? And then you suddenly got a number to work with. So that's always important. But for us, it's the report and the data, and that's just the beginning. It's really get the baseline in place, know what to focus on, and what's going to drive change for you, because every business is different as well. And I think one of the things that we looked at when we did your report review is that now we know we have a very clear understanding of what needs to progress, what we need to progress to get you to on that journey to net zero, and focusing on the supply chain and going through that whole process, which is obviously great for the membership, because I know we obviously work with a number of your members anyway, but for you as an association, to really lead from the front line to say
we are practicing what we preach.
Exactly, And then if people want to know what that process is like, then they can literally talk to their membership and understand how it was for them.
And just from people who are looking at doing this sort of thing as well, like from being in the finance team, you often get asked to fill these forms in lots of times, and you can have a little bit of apprehension about going through it, because it's just another form to fill in sort of thing. But the actual information that you're being asked to do, it is just like doing a national statistics survey, which from a finance point of view, you do that every year anyway if you got products and services. So you've probably got the metrics in place already. It's just a case of making sure that each P&L line aligns to the boxes that you've got on the form, and it makes it a lot easier to go through because it's familiar.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's good to hear that, and I think that's probably important to help keep that message out there, because I think people will be unnecessarily concerned about what will this look like, how much time and effort am I going to have to put into it, resource, and when someone's thinking, well, how do I get the information around my supply chain, that can be, for a lot of people, refreshingly straightforward. Just like you mentioned, if you're able to categorize it, and that's something you're doing anyway, then it fits in with your natural process, so it isn't an alien thing to do, and therefore the whole thing becomes so much more achievable. We did things like data capture links as well, so particularly people who have a lot of staff members, and we're trying to track the home working and commuting data. Some people are thinking, well, I've got to get HR to work out how all 900 of my staff, how many times do they come into the office and what mode of transport do they use, and those were some of the biggest challenges, where we even ensured that technology enables that to be much more accessible and successful. And that data capture link can go to each individual staff member, who can fill in their specific details, which will take them about 30 seconds. And that comes straight into the system. And suddenly you've gone from a headache to probably one of the easiest things in terms of your data collection. So that's been a real priority for us to make that much more achievable. So good to hear that your experience is nice and positive and easy. So and we're obviously very excited about moving on and your next steps and all the things that we're talking about doing.
I mean, one of the key things for me is that we also, as an association, host events.
Yeah.
I now want to start working with you guys and see how we can make those carbon neutral, because I think that's really important to look at. Especially with our golf days, our forums that we host. Hopefully, I'm looking, not this year sadly, but for next year we'd be looking at the British Security Awards and seeing how we can try and make that a carbon neutral event. That would be fantastic.
It sends such a strong message, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's something that you're doing, and you're basically saying we're aware that there is an impact. We're making all the right steps to ensure that impact is as low as it possibly can be, but we're getting insight into where that impact's coming from. When we're asking people to travel to somewhere and we're putting on an event and there's energy being consumed in that, and there's food and beverages and all the rest of all the things that go into putting on an event, can be understood. And when you start to understand the implication of each one of those areas, you can start to make decisions around it. Can we find a venue that's going to be more environmentally responsible? Can we find a solution that's going to ensure that we're minimizing the impact of travel and hotel stays and things like that? So it's important. And then obviously, balancing the part of the footprint that is unavoidable is a responsible way of saying, look, we're doing everything we can, but we're not going to ignore the part that's right now unavoidable. We're going to balance that by getting to that zero figure, whilst we then continue to work on, when we do our next event, how can that be more efficient? So you start from there, you get to there with efficiency, and you balance the bit that's left whilst working on getting it further and further down. So eventually we get to that net zero point where everything has come into play and all aspects are as efficient as humanly possible, and all you're having to balance is the final small bit at the end. I think it's great, and it's a great way to demonstrate a proactive approach to really responsibly putting on these events that you're putting on, and doing something that's clearly benefiting the members as well. So great move.
And one of the key takeaways from the security event, which we have attended recently, was the amount of waste that we produced as an exhibitor. And it was quite soul destroying, to be honest with you. And again, that's something that we're really going to be addressing next year, and wherever possible, minimizing waste and also recycling. Making sure that even if we just do our bit, it's something towards the impact of the overall show.
Absolutely.
And again, it's now become very much in our focus, which is great as part of the process.
I was going to say,
I
think that's one of the good things about doing it with NCZ, is because when we've looked at these things in the past, you've literally just been filled out a form and then left there. But then because the conversation's continued, it makes you think more about what you can do to make things that little bit better. And
you guys are now proactively understanding what your impact is. So when you're doing that and you're saying, well, okay, we're now going to take all the measures that we can to ensure our waste or our travel or whatever it is going to be as low as it possibly can be. But there's also really a growing obligation now for the event spaces themselves to make that as easy as possible for people to adopt. So if there is a process in place that people can very easily segregate their waste, make it something that it's an easy process to follow, then that's going to be more efficient and have a lower environmental impact and far more adoption of that process, because you've just made it easy for everyone to do. And if they understand the difference that it makes through the education of, well, waste is X amount of our total event emissions, and therefore we've taken these steps, and we now know by implementing these steps we've actually been able to reduce waste by 17%, and that's the equivalent of taking a flight from Manchester to Madrid, or whatever. It gives people some understanding of, okay, that's worth doing. It's easy for me to do because they're putting it in place for me to be able to do it, and then why would you not do it? So it's really about trying to remove as many barriers to entry as possible and make it as easy to adopt as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned quite a few of our BSIA members have been through this process with you. One of the things that people may not be aware is, certainly with the tender process, that it's no longer just a tick. you have to be able to evidence these things to be able to be quite a hefty percentage of the specification that's being put through. So is that why companies are looking to do this more and more?
It's certainly one of the drivers of change. I would say the expectation being applied to organisations who are tendering for work, or the questions that are being asked by a company to its suppliers, has significantly increased, and that's increasing the adoption of carbon measurement far more quickly than even legislation is, because legislation will capture certain companies of a certain size. But if an organisation is sitting there and looking at their footprint, a bit like you are, you're looking at your footprint and saying, well, whatever it was, 77% of my footprint is in the supply chain. That's something that needs to be addressed. It's not going to happen overnight. So I now need to know not just what the number is, but where does that come from my supplier, so that I know what can and can't be done right now. I know what time frame I'm working with. And it's only really at that point that you can set a credible target of your own. So if organisations are asking those questions, it's because they've realised that they're not going to get to net zero unless their suppliers help them get there. So most companies will have anything from sort of 50 to 90% of their footprint sat in the supply chain. And that's a real challenge. That could be dozens, hundreds or thousands of suppliers that you've got to try and engage with. And if they don't do it, you won't get there. So that's been a big challenge. And I would say from a tender perspective, that's one of the reasons why you're starting to see, beyond just the tick the box to say I've got an environmental policy, to actually it's multiple pages and it's 25 or 30% of the score, i.e. it's incredibly important and we're going to win or lose tenders on the basis of this. Absolutely. That's what's changed, and I think it's because of the realisation that area needs to be addressed. Otherwise we're not going to get to where we need to get to. Scope 1 and 2 is one thing, even other aspects of Scope 3, but generally speaking, the supply chain, i.e. the purchase goods and services, what we spend money on as a business, that's the bit that's outside of our control, but it's often the biggest part of our footprint, and left unchecked is going to be the biggest headache in terms of getting to where you need to get to. So yeah, it's definitely changed the game in terms of the questions that are being asked and the priority that's being applied to it, and certain procurement frameworks are now setting definite target years, and they're basically saying, well, look, we can't take the risk of working with a supplier that we don't know whether they're helping or hindering our journey to net zero. So if you don't know, that's a business risk. So suddenly it's not even necessarily an environmental or social side of business activity. It's a definitive commercial risk, because if that's stopping you getting to where you need to get to, can you even afford to work with that supplier? Yeah. So it's a very different environment that we're in now.
As an affinity partner of the BSIA, which is fantastic to have you guys on board, you offer 5% discount to our membership.
Yeah.
So if anyone is looking to come on this journey, they can get in touch with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got various different levels of reporting, and ultimately there's a level for every type of company. So we don't expect very small SMEs, for instance, who will struggle with the internal expertise. We don't expect them to go to the very top level of certification immediately. That might not be appropriate for them. So there is a level. We even have a free option for organisations to just start that journey and start thinking about it, where we model their emissions based on a question set the answers that they give to a question set using our database. You've got a self-certified version, which is very much access to the tool. You've got all the online support. You can punch in the numbers and get a full report. That's very inexpensive and easy to access. You've got the option that you guys have gone for, which is the full independently verified ISO compliant complete support report and carbon reduction plan, so i.e. that very credible baseline and starting point. And then you've got the platinum level, which is all of that, but also the supply chain compliance program, which is
that's our next target.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's it speaks to the journey that you're on, because you've done that, you've gone through that, you started at a very credible level. You want a proper baseline in place so that you can start having something that you can refer back to when you do set targets. But you also now know, when you're looking at that, well, the biggest area for us to affect change is that supply chain, and therefore you've got the understanding to substantiate that. Why are we now focusing on a supply chain? Well, it's because it's 77% of our footprint, and that's going to take some time. Therefore, we need to start that process. So you've gone through that, naturally, to really look at, where are our emissions coming from, and what should we be doing? Because with the best will in the world, we can't talk to every business about, you need to change your fleet to EV vehicles. If you're talking to a company that doesn't have any vehicles in their fleet, energy consumption might be an area to focus in on. But for some businesses, that might be less than 1% of their footprint. So it's really about doing what's appropriate for the business, and making sure that the steps that they take will benefit them, not just, this is the process that everybody has to follow. So it is tailored to what's appropriate for you. And there is a level for every single organisation. So if you're wanting to start small, that's absolutely possible, and then progress. Continual improvement is fantastic. No one's expecting you to achieve this overnight. So if someone wants to literally just make a start and get an understanding, then great. Make a start. It's very easy to do, and then progress through that in a way that's appropriate for you and your business.
Brilliant. Next on the agenda for us, British Security Awards.
Yes.
So we are reintroducing in 2027 the Environmental Project of the Year category, which we're very excited to be working on with you guys. We're going to sort of put a plan in place so that you can support any companies that will be looking to put submissions in for 2027.
Yeah, definitely.
And watch this space.
Yeah, it's going to be good. We are going to be launching some white papers and some guides, and really just to give some benefit to and some guidance in terms of what good looks like. It's going to be an exciting category, I think, and it's going to be interesting because a lot is already happening. And I think it's helping the industry understand that we have a role to play, and these questions are being asked, and we can collectively as an industry achieve an awful lot. And if we can make that work for everyone involved, then obviously all the security businesses will be benefiting from that. Their customers will be benefiting from that. The people that work for these companies will be benefiting from that. So it's a fantastic social message, full stop. But yes, exciting, and we're proud to be partnering with you guys to make this happen. And I think it's exciting for the industry. So yeah, it's going to be good.
Definitely, and who knows, we might put in a submission for ourselves next year.
You really got to, yeah.
I think we could be. Thank you so much for joining us, Alan.
Pleasure.
It's been lovely catching up with you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us on The Voice.
Thank you.